The Gravity Gardeners. Chapter 4, The Symbiotic Key. The return to the Horizon's Whisper was a slow, painful trek. Every muscle in Aris's body protested, and a deep, throbbing ache had settled in his ribs where he'd slammed into the fungal shelf. But beneath the physical pain, a fierce, focused energy burned. He had the key, not in a data stream or a chemical formula, but in the tough, fibrous, sporulating mass of gray matter now safely stored in the stalwart's biocontainer. Back in the ship's lab, the unassuming sample looked utterly mundane under the sterile lights. Yet, it held the power to quiet the glitter blight's shrieking whine and smother its malevolent glow. Whisper full analysis. I want the genome, the enzymatic profile, the resonant frequency of its spore release, everything. Analyzing, complex biochemical profile detected. Primary active component is a polyenzymatic secretion, designate matsecrete. It disrupts the glitter blight's crystalline cell wall and neutralizes its antifungal toxins. The gray mat's natural resonance is a dampening wave that counteracts the blight's disruptive frequency. And the spores, what triggers their activation? My initial scans showed it was dormant until the blight appeared. Confirmed, the gray mat's spores remain dormant until exposed to the glitter blight's specific disruptive energy signature. The blight's attack triggers a rapid germination response. It is a highly specialized defense mechanism. Aris paced the small lab, his mind racing. So we can't just spread the spores everywhere and hope they work. We have to take them to the blight, and we have to do it fast before the gardeners are all gone and the planet's gravity tears itself apart. He stopped, looking at the holographic map of Mycelios. The purple stains were spreading like wounds, and the vital signs of the mycelial network were flickering, growing weaker. We need to weaponize this. We need to become a part of the planet's immune system. His plan crystallized with a frantic, desperate clarity. It had two parts, both dependent on the gray mat. First, we synthesize the matsecrete enzyme. Concentrate it into a liquid solution we can aerosolize, an enzymatic rain to poison the blight directly. Synthesis protocol is feasible. Ship's biofabricators can produce a concentrated solution. Estimated production rate, 200 liters per hour. Good. Second, we harvest and culture the gray mat spores. We need millions of them. We'll load them into canisters designed to rupture on impact, seeding the blight patches with the cure. Spore culturing will require significant biomass and time. The gray mat grows rapidly only under blight stress. Then we'll give it stress, Aris said, a grim smile touching his lips. We'll expose the culture to a broadcast of the blight's disruptive frequency, trick it into thinking it's under attack. The next 72 hours were a blur of relentless activity. The Horizon's Whisper hummed with a new purpose. In the lab, biofabricators whirred, synthesizing the complex matsecrete enzyme into a shimmering, opalescent liquid. In a hastily converted cargo bay, trays of gray mat biomass, constantly bathed in a recording of the glitter blight's whine, produced clouds of fresh, activated spores that were carefully harvested and packed into dispersal canisters. Meanwhile, Aris and Whisper worked on the delivery system, the shuttle Stalwart. We need to get low, fast, and agile. The gravity is too unpredictable for high-altitude bombing runs. Aris was on his back under the shuttle's console, rerouting power conduits. We'll need to modify the maneuvering thrusters for more precise control. and we need sprayers for the enzyme and a launcher for the spore canisters. Modifications in progress. Installing high-pressure agricultural sprayers along the wing edges. Retrofitting the Geological Survey sonic emitters to broadcast the gray mat's dampening frequency. Spore canister launcher will be mounted in the cargo bay, modified for low-altitude deployment. They worked until their power cells were depleted and their systems screamed for maintenance. Aris survived on stim shots and a grim determination that bordered on obsession. He watched the planetary scans deteriorate. Another gardener fell, its death throes triggering a seismic event that wiped out a forest of fungal spires the size of cities. The dissonance in the planet's song was now a continuous, sickening drone. Finally, it was time. The stalwart, now nicknamed Spore Sprinter by Aris in a moment of gallows humor, sat in the Whisper's Bay, transformed. It bristled with unorthodox hardware, its sleek lines marred by the bulbous sprayer tanks and the angular launcher mechanism. Pre-flight check, Whisper, this has to work. All systems nominal, enzyme tanks, 100% capacity, spore canisters, 200 units loaded, resonance broadcaster calibrated. Gravitrix sensors are prioritized for evasive maneuvers. Aris strapped himself into the pilot's seat, his hands gripping the controls. Okay, let's go gardening. The spore sprinter dropped from the belly of the Whisper and plunged into the thick, spore-laden atmosphere. The ride was immediately rougher than before. The planet was dying, and its death spasms were violent. Gravity tugged at the shuttle from all directions, a chaotic dance of invisible fists. Activate resonance broadcaster. Let's see if we can calm the waters. A low, soothing hum emanated from the shuttle, a counter-melody to the planet's distress. It wasn't a cure, but a balm. Aris saw the effect on his sensors immediately. The wildest gravity fluctuations in their immediate vicinity smoothed out, becoming more predictable. The blight's whine, however, seemed to intensify in response, a screech of rage. Their pattern alpha, that large patch on the valley floor. Aris pushed the controls forward, sending the spore sprinter into a steep dive. He skimmed mere meters above a vast, pulsating lake of purple. Spraying enzyme, launch spore canisters, ripple fire. He hit the controls. A fine, opalescent mist showered down from the wings, coating the blight. Simultaneously, a series of canisters shot from the belly, arcing through the air before bursting open just above the surface, releasing clouds of gray mat spores. The effect was dramatic. Where the enzyme fell, the blight sizzled and dimmed. Where the spores landed, the dull gray mat began to spread like a fast-moving mold, consuming the purple menace. A cheer died in Aris's throat as a massive shadow fell over them. An infected gardener, drawn by the activity or simply wandering in its agony, loomed above. One of its arms was a solid mass of glowing purple, and its bronze eye rolled madly. It swiped at the air, a clumsy, world-ending gesture. Evasive action, Aris yelled, wrenching the shuttle to the side. The root limb missed them by meters, but the gravitational wake it left was like hitting a wall of syrup. The spore sprinter shuddered, alarms blaring. Port maneuvering thrusters overloading. Gravitrix shear. Compensate, get us out of its field. He fought the controls, weaving through the forest of fungal towers, the enraged gardener crashing along behind them. He couldn't fight it, he could only run. For hours, they continued their desperate campaign. They painted valleys with enzyme and seeded clouds with spores. They saw patches of blight wither and die, and they saw the grey mat spread, creating healing grey scars across the landscape. They saw healthy gardeners, sensing the shift, move in to nurture the new growth, their gentle gravity touches accelerating the recovery. But they also saw failures. A spore canister landed in a pocket of crushing high G, its payload instantly inert. A sprayer nozzle clogged with viscous spore sludge, wasting precious enzyme. And once, a direct broadcast of their dampening frequency near a critically unstable gardener seemed to enrage it further, sending it into a frenzy that destroyed a swath of newly healed forest. They were a stimulus, not a solution, a catalyst in a planetary-scale chemical reaction. They were helping, but the scale was still overwhelming. As the spore sprinters' fuel and supplies ran low, Aris targeted one last objective. A massive, mountain-sized gardener, its back encrusted with glowing purple crystals, stumbling towards a pristine region of the fungal forest. This one, if it fell, would cause an extinction-level event. "This is it," whisper, all remaining enzyme and spores. We hit the infection on its back and lead it away from the healthy zone. It was a suicide run. The gravitational distortions around the infected giant were a storm. The spore sprinter was tossed and battered. Warning lights flashed across the console. A thruster failed, then another. "We're losing control," Aris shouted, fighting the stick as they spiraled towards the gardener's blighted back. "Brace for impact." They skimmed across the fibrous, purple-stained tissue, the shuttle screeching in protest. Aris slammed his hand on the jettison button, releasing their entire remaining payload of enzyme and spores in a single, desperate deluge. The opalescent fluid and grey spores coated the gardener's back. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the blight flared, but this time there was no shockwave. The grey mat, supercharged by the concentrated enzyme and the blight's own energy, erupted into growth. A grey crust spread like wildfire over the purple, snuffing it out. The gardener, which had been groaning in agony, suddenly stilled. Its madly rolling eye slowed, then fixed forward. The deep, pained vibrations emanating from it ceased. It stood there, a mountain of newly scarred tissue, and let out a single, deep, resonant thrum. Not of pain, but of recognition, of relief. The spore sprinter, critically damaged, fell from the gardener's back, tumbling towards the forest below. Whisper, emergency lift, anything. Insufficient thrust, impact inevitable. Aris closed his eyes, waiting for the end. It never came. A gentle, immense force enveloped the shuttle. He opened his eyes to see the world outside the viewport moving, but not in a chaotic tumble. They were being carried. The gardener, the one they had just healed, had caught the falling spore sprinter in its massive, root-like hand. It held them with impossible delicacy, its tarnished bronze eye regarding the tiny craft. Then, with the same slow, deliberate care it used to tend the fungal spires, it placed the shuttle down gently on a wide, stable fungal cap, far from the blighted zones. Aris sat in stunned silence, his heart pounding. He watched as the healed gardener turned and lumbered away, not towards the pristine forest, but back towards the heart of the blight, its renewed purpose clear. The comm crackled. "Aris, vitals are stable, hull breach is minor, the gardener, It saved us. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding, a shaky, hysterical laugh bubbling up. The symbiosis goes both ways, whisper. We stimulated the cure, and it remembered its purpose. Looking out at the scarred but healing world, watching the colossal form of the gardener move to resume its work, Aris knew they had turned the tide. They weren't just gardeners anymore. They had become a part of the ecosystem, a new kind of symbiote, and the real work was just beginning.